Hey, welcome back to the Prospecting Show. Today is Wednesday, September 29th, the second show this week. We got a third one tomorrow. Today, we have current customer and wizard of the internet, Sean, on the call. Thank you for coming on the Prospecting Show. The purpose of this podcast is really to interview you, talk about what you do, how you do it, what your story is. So before we get into what you do today, walk us through like your background. Where did you come from? What did you do for school? How did you build your first couple, businesses or jobs? Walk us through the whole kind of history.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. First of all, thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure to be with you. Yeah, so I started, I was one of those computer science stealth nerds in high school. Like I was, doing the computer thing, but not letting anybody know I was into computers, but I was really into computers. And I went to school for it. I went to UMass and Syracuse for computer science, but like they weren't teaching what was cool at the time. So packed everything I owned in my car back when I could do that, which was awesome. Drove to California, started a business, started doing anything I could with computers. So I did IT for about 10 years, but in the middle of that, what happened was I had an IT business, but at one point I caught wind of this thing called Windows NT. And this is aging me. And I was like, I think this is gonna be something. So I went all in on it, and it ended up being like Microsoft's enterprise platform, right? So I got a little lucky there. And I actually was getting book offers. I was had this little computer business in Sonoma County, California. So I was like, sure, I'll write, for like the biggest book in the industry, or because they were so desperate for authors, they'd take anybody with a pulse who knew Windows NT, and
sure.
I was one of the early. So yeah, being early on can really have its advantages. So I ended up writing some books. I wrote for the #1 magazine, which was Windows IT Pro magazine, nay Windows NT magazine. But meanwhile, I had this like IT business. And so, it's like I met with a business consultant one day, and he's like, okay, so you're like this, you speak all over the world at these conferences and you write these books, and then you have this little IT. He goes, you're like a rock star that owns a bakery, and you're talking to me about making donuts, and I'm wondering why you're not on tour. Like, your life makes no sense. And I was like, right. Like, I'm not leveraging my fame
Sure.
that I built in this little nerd world, right? So that I came up with an idea in a coffee shop one day to go pitch these guys, because all these vendors would pitch me. They'd be, hey, Sean, we want to tell you about our latest software. So what I ended up doing was reverse pitching them. They'd pitch me, talk about my security platform, blah, whatever it was, right? At the end of the call, I'd be like, hey, person name, I'm writing a book on what you guys do. Would you be interested in possibly sponsoring the book? And they'd be like, oh, that's really cool. So what's the deal? And I would tell them the deal. So the idea was sponsored publishing. It was an ebook delivered online as it would come out, right? So called Real Time Publishers was the name of the company. Basically, because we had no budget, no money, no list, nothing. It was very Stone Soup, if you know the story of Stone Soup. The Confederate soldiers come home from the war, they got nothing. They put a stone in a pot, they heat the pot. Everybody's like, hey, what are you making? Stone Soup. They all contribute something the guys eat, right? We're the poor guys with the rock at this point. And we ended up getting the first customer. I was like, what do you think about $50,000? Oh, background here is I was getting paid a $10,000 advance to write a 1,000-page book that took me a year, pennies per hour. So this was like $50,000 to write a 125-page book that would take me like a month. And the guy's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh shit. He said yes. Sorry if I swore there. I'm from Philly.
All good.
Avoid it.
Yeah.
You edit it out. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that was too cheap. So I just kept increasing the price as I pitched this to other people. I got up to $250,000 for a 150-page book to bind you. And I was like, wow. And so next thing I know, I've invented like an industry, and all the competitors come in, including my own magazine. And anyway, long story short, I sold that company 5.5 years later for a nice little amount of money. Proceeded to lose it all in the stock market and real estate market. Had to rebuild myself. I brought all my skills together. I had like a complete career reboot in 2010, where I was like, okay, I do all these podcasting, videos, SEO. I was dabbling in websites. And I brought it all together in a digital agency focusing on local back in 2010. And so that was like really fun for me, because I was like, all right, I got my groove back. Sean's got his groove back now. I'm really interested in this. And that was 11 years ago, and still doing it now. Love it. We started with local, but we have a lot of national clients. But what the pitch for me was, like, I was able to bring this like because I got to work with Microsoft and Dell and BindView and Computer Associates and all these big companies, Kohler Company. So I had that sort of like big time company experience with marketing. Oh, by the way, I realized at some point I wasn't a publisher, I was a marketer. That's why I started a marketing company, because I literally I didn't know that in the beginning. I was like, somebody had to tell me I was a marketer. I was like, oh, that's right. Because I was always an IT guy, right? I was like, we hated marketers. And I was like, I'm not a marketer. Anyway, but I finally embraced that. Yeah, so that was the origin story, the genesis of this agency. And yeah, well, you know, where would you like me to go from there?
Tell us a little bit about, so this is kind of interesting because you've had, like a lot of people, right? You've had a business throughout the 2008 crash, right? And I think it's like an important part of the entrepreneurial journey, which is like, hey, 2008 killed 98% of everything, right? Like it was just it was just a bad year, right? All around.
Yeah.
And even, 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people too. But I think that the big thing there is about entrepreneurs that kind of fall down after 2008 and then get back up and keep going. So like, what do you think the number one thing is that you've learned while that was going on, when everything was crashing and there's big, market? I know you're in real estate as well, but like, what was the number one thing that you learned that you are doing differently today?
That's a good question. Let's see. Don't get over leveraged. Make sure that the business models and the personal life financial models can survive another crash like that. Example, I bought a second house now there was no Airbnb at the time, but VRBO did exist. Things like, what would happen if this market got flooded with other rentals where you can't rent your new second house, or like little things like that. But other things, I'd say also only like insisting on extremely high profitability businesses and niches that are recession proof, right? Focusing both for my customers and myself, things like that. It really makes me scrutinize. Not to say that I have a guaranteed, I'm not immune from that, but it's like have the maximum sort of protection you can. Those are the biggest things I learned. It's like a lot of point lessons, strong cash positions, cash is king, all that stuff. I think a lot of us learned right through 2000.
Yeah, well, and I think if you had a business and did real estate, it was one of those things you really learn the parallels, right? Because like the real estate game is like, there's a lot of people who get into it, right? It's like, hey, I got a little extra cash, let's put it down, let's buy a home, let's rent it short-term, long-term, whatever, right? Like that's easy to get into one deal. What's not easy is to build the portfolio and build the business and run them in parallel, right? To have both things. Right. So I'm sure you learned a ton of stuff there. In your business life, as you transition from, selling basically advertising, right? Within this magazine, right? This advertising slot into kind of doing more done for you professional services. What is the trend you're noticing? Like, where do you think things are going into the future right now?
So it's going into conversational selling. It's all about customer engagement, and customer service is everything. Like the customer service bar is so high, both for agencies like myself. It's like we have to deliver at that level. We have to be like an outsourced marketing department. And we're happy to do that. Luckily, I grew up in the customer service business with my father being a general manager of hotels. So he instilled that in myself and my brothers. So I feel like I have a leg up because of him with that. Is this, we were just bred to take good care of our customers. Literally, that's just like my dad knew everybody's first name in the hotel. It's like that never happens, right? Hilton and Marriott general manager doing that. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it for the customers as well, and their businesses. They have to have that down. Depends on the type of business you're in, of course, what the impact is if you're doing transactional e-commerce. But it's still important on the back end though for that. But as far as like social platforms, short form video, short form what you're doing too, like podcasts, things like that. You have to have an edge. You have to have a message. You have to make a statement. You have to be different. These things are not new, but it's where I find most businesses fall down. They do not understand who they are in the marketplace, what makes them different, or they haven't embraced it. And then and if they do, they don't communicate it well. It's really the fundamentals. It's not like, oh, there's this snazzy new thing. Oh, hey, TikTok's going to blow you up, right? Okay. Like maybe you'll leverage that and it'll be great and everything, but it's always about the basics. It's always the basics. It's, do you understand your value proposition? Do you have a good product in the marketplace or a good service? Is it at a fair price? And is there something that you have as the UVP, unique value proposition? And are you communicating that to your customers? Right? That's where I mean, when we work with clients, that's usually the first things we're working on, is helping them either develop that, which is like outside the scope of a marketing agency, but we're willing to do it, or enunciating that to your audience and making sure they understand it, right? Because a lot of times, you do an intake form for a marketing campaign, and it's like, yeah, it's just basic questions. Like some of the things I've mentioned in the last 2 minutes here, people are completely stumped. They're like, can we get on a call? Because I don't even know what you mean, or I don't know what to say. And I'm like, wait, you don't know how to communicate your basic value proposition? You don't know who your competitor, like things like that, right? And I'm not saying it to make fun of them. I expect this now, except for the very larger, much larger companies when I'm working with. Actually, I mean, even sometimes I work with, $50 to $150 million companies. They still are missing out on that.
Offer is everything too. I think that's the big point that you're making. It's like a lot of these people don't actually know what they offer, right? They think they sell a thing or a widget or a service or whatever, but they don't know the problem that they solve. So when you ask them and they're wondering like, hey, my lead gen's not going that well, or my business is not growing or whatever, it's like, maybe what you're selling isn't what people want to buy today, right? Like that's the big difference. Right. And they can't communicate the offer. And that's what we see a lot too, right? Like when we have clients come on, number one thing I hear from people is like, yeah, we're better, we're unique. That's like the two things. We're better and unique. And it's like, okay, why? Does everyone else think that? Is that a you thing? Is that that conversation needs to go a little bit further than we're just better, right? There has to be a fee structure that makes better sense, or an engagement level that makes different sense, or maybe you're a little done for you and done with you, or maybe you're consulting and so that you can share with multiple business owners. Like there's got to be those things that are different today, like you're pointing out, that unique value prop, and it has to be really different, right? Like it can't just be we're cheaper, we're faster, we're better. Like that stuff doesn't work anymore because everyone's heard it, right? If you get it cheap, it's not going to be a good price. Or sorry, if
and it's a race to the bottom.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's always going to be down there, and the cost is actually going to be super high because now it's like you pay for something that's cheap, and the implementation process maybe isn't as ideal as you would like, and then you come out the other side with like, I don't know if this is the best solution, right? That's why I tell people, learn how to build businesses. Don't learn how to sell the thing you have, right? If we take away Facebook tomorrow, right? Can you build something that's still going to work? We take away SEO principles. Can you still build a company that works? In most of the companies, they can't, right? If LinkedIn disappears or TikTok or whatever the platform is disappears, there should be a fundamental process of this is a problem, this is the solution, this is how we put them together. And
right. I totally agree with everything you said. And you're right is really where I was going, or what I was dancing around is it's your offer suck syndrome. And people not being able to step outside themselves objectively and look at their company. And that it's hard for all of us. It's hard for me. I'm not here to judge anybody, just saying when we, over these 21 years of doing marketing, 11 of it intentionally, what I've discovered is some of the DNA clues, right? Success leaves clues, as we've heard for so long. And part of that DNA is owners or managers who are able to step outside and really look at their business truly from an objective customer level standpoint, where they can actually see themselves, or they hire people to help them do that and accept their input. Because that's usually what happens is it's myopia. They're just looking out and they can't, things are happening around them and they're just unwilling based on ego or just, whatever it is, stale ideas. They're not willing to see themselves with a fresh perspective or an objective perspective, the way the customer does. And so it's like, I always walk business owners through their own funnel and ask them, challenge them to think about, what would you do this? Like, it's always the sniff test. It's like, would I buy this myself? That's what you should ask. Like really.
Yeah. That's a great test. Yeah, absolutely. But ego, you bring up a good point about ego, because the guys who have the ego would say, oh yeah, I'd always buy stuff for myself, right? It doesn't matter what it was on. But if you're right, if you objectively step away and say, hey, if I had to go cut a check out of my personal bank account right now, no credit, just cash, right? If I got to go cash, because that makes it a little more painful for most people, right? If I go put the cash down today and I deplete the account, is the thing I get back going to put me further ahead or further behind? Right? Because it's unlikely going to keep you where you're at. Sometimes that happens. Honestly, we have probably 15% of our customers that we work with. They come in, they work with us, and I talk to them 6 months down the road, and they're kind of like sort of where they were before, right? That happens, right? There's people that's like don't innovate fast enough, they don't sell fast enough, they don't build fast enough, they don't grow whatever it is, right? But majority of people either get way better or way worse after building their company. So, from your perspective, what do you think is the number one thing that people should be focusing on today? What's the growth strategy today that you think everyone should be looking at?
Okay, so I'll talk about growth through prospecting and sales, because that's usually where people are lacking, okay? What everybody does is they pick one channel and one thing and one inch. They get stuck on an idea, right? Going back to getting stuck. They're like, I got to use Facebook ads, or I'm definitely going to do SEO, or I'm definitely going to do LinkedIn, or whatever it is, right? And they try one thing and they burn out their marketing budget. And then they decide that based on that one agency experience or one marketer experience and one channel experience, that this sucks. And this could be, in an extreme circumstance, marketing doesn't work. Online marketing doesn't work. Ridiculous. That channel doesn't work. You don't know that. You didn't try every campaign under the sun and every audience and every split tested creative and every marketer who manages it, or that agency sucks or whatever. So the companies that I see win are the ones who are willing to try out different channels, preferably in parallel if there's enough budget, if not in a serial fashion, to find out what's working and don't have their eggs in one basket, and really look at this as like a cost of doing business. Like your marketing expenditure, it should be hard coded in your budget. It should exist. And some people just treat it like this optional spend that, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. It's like, are you kidding me? Like attrition is going to kill you. And at least you're not reaching your potential at the very least here. So it's the people that try Facebook and Google at the same time, and even multiple different types of campaigns within those platforms. Try LinkedIn outreach, try whatever it is. There's always new flavors of the month, right? In this industry, lots of bright, shiny objects, but just trying different things to understand the nature of each one and what it brings, what types of customers does this bring? Because it tends to be, different. Sometimes it's, well, we win in a different way on this platform, but we get like whales on this platform, but we get more transactional growth, and so then you start being able to kind of divide and conquer and target different products or services to those platforms. These are things that most businesses never discover because they do that sort of one-track mind methodology, and it doesn't work. But one other thing too, and this goes back to the earlier conversation, there was just one more note I wanted to make, is that, being able to be radically honest with yourself about your business is a very difficult thing to do. But I just talked to a guy yesterday, he's in our industry. I respect him a lot. He completely rebooted his model. He has 150 employees. So this is not like one guy in his basement going, hey, I can change anything up whenever I want. This guy has a lot of investment, a lot of people, and a lot of overhead. He completely transformed his business model. He is making twice as much money now with 1/4 of the number of clients by changing. In his case, it was changing from one model to a franchising model in his business. He ended up franchising. That was the answer for him. But it was a complete fundamental rewrite. So it's like, being able to spin this thing and look at it from a different angle in general and that's what you have to do. If it's not broke, don't fix it, of course. I mean, if you don't need to do that, don't go doing that. But so anyway, it doesn't mean just because what's working right now doesn't mean you're chicken little, the sky's falling and your business is going to die. You might have to get radically honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it too. And I think that the purpose of a CEO, regardless of how big or small the company is, there's always that visionary person, right? The goal of that person is not to run day-to-day operations. It's to try to sit on top of the company and look like, where could we go? What's the next thing that we can do? What's the next thing we can build? What's the better product, the better service, the better this or that? And I think a lot of these small businesses, to your point, like they're so in it, they're in that world of like, I'm just defending all day, right? Just put up the shield and block the arrows kind of thing. Like they're just playing so much defense that they can never get out of the company and start looking at what's going on. So in a small business, right? Because I'm sure you work with some really large companies, but you also work with some smaller companies. How do you recommend that people step away and actually look down on their business?
How do you step away? So mastermind groups, the number one thing I've done for the past 15 years in my life, and especially the last 11, has been having a mastermind group. Now, mastermind groups are discussed, at length in Think and Grow Rich, right? That was the original book that discussed that. So if you want to learn about it, it's free, by the way, the book's free. It's in the public domain. But the idea with a mastermind is simply to have other people that are preferably in your same industry who are at a approximately close, doesn't have to be exact size, revenue, employees, whatever, however you gauge that. And going back to radical honesty, you're all there to support each other, but not BS each other, right? We're going to have real conversations. Total accountability, just to synopsize the rules of masterminds. And by the way, magic things happen when you do this.
Yeah.
I mean, you end up sharing resources, you end up getting input you would never get because it's really informative, educated input, right, from somebody who knows your industry, your business, and is doing things a better and different way. You learn about, it's amazing. And so it can push you. It's people to hold you accountable. And most mastermind groups that I've been in, I've become really, really good, like lifetime friends with the people that have been in that group. And we really, the guy I started with 11 years ago, we just met yesterday. We have a 2-person mastermind. We were in a 4 or 5 originally. And it's like, we just won't stop masterminding together.
Yeah.
What do we do during the call? The focus shifts depending on the call with maybe one or the other of us, depending on what's going on. But the elements of it are no BSing, total transparency. It's like Fight Club, it's not in the sense of like nobody talks about it, but it's like everything's confidential in that group. And these are your like brothers and sisters in arms here. I mean, these, if you're in the right mastermind group, it's good to not have everybody be the same. It's good to have different personalities. My ideal number for a mastermind group is between 3 and 5. I don't like more than that. I've been in many. I'm not saying bigger ones don't work, or and I said I have a 2-person one that I do too. Actually, I have 2 2-person ones. But so that for me would be something I would recommend to every single business person on the planet.
Yeah. You got to have that accountability. Tell us, just so that I want to keep the episode relatively short here. So tell us about your business, who you serve, what you do today. Because we talked a lot about your past and your business growth strategies, where things are going to go, masterminding, like all that stuff is great. But like, what is it that you're delivering to the marketplace? Like, shout out to the people that can buy some stuff from you or get your help, right? We want you to have the opportunity here to share with the audience. So what do you do? What's the deliverables you guys have today? And who are you focusing on working with?
Yeah, thanks. No, so basically we're a full stack digital marketing agency. We have all the background I've already talked about. We're going to implement, at the end of the day, what we do ends up being implementation of digital marketing through all the channels we've talked about, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, developing creative, developing ad campaigns, developing strategy. And most importantly, it's the first thing we do. I'm not saying the other things aren't important, the day-to-day stuff, but it's that initial strategy, advice, getting a chief marketing officer level consultation and advice from somebody. And it's not just me, it's my whole team too, because there's multiple people on a call that are going to have input and brainstorm. And we usually blow business owners away with like what we come up with in those sessions. We get their input and feedback, and then we bring it all together and then develop a strategy for that, and then put that strategy to work. And we have many arrows in our quiver. We're not a one-trick pony, so we're gonna customize our strategy. A lot of people are cookie cutter and they're overly channel focused. Like, we're a Facebook marketing agency. Well, I mean, okay, but what if Facebook's not right for that company, right? So for us, it's all about meeting them where they are with their budget and growing from there in the future, making the first campaign prove itself and pay for itself, and completely delivering customized strategies and campaigns to each client. And most people don't do that because it's hard to scale that, right? It really is. The industries we work in, we're in like 25 industries. We have a heavy focus on construction, medical, a few others. We're even doing things with like employment. One of the bigger issues right now for a lot of companies, we can't hire anybody.
Yeah.
We can grow more, but we can't hire. And so we've actually even started doing employment campaigns, getting better results for some people than like Indeed and other platforms like that, because we're using things like Facebook marketing in ways that people usually don't. So getting creative. Now, did we have like a playbook for that? That was completely customized. Right. 2 of the best campaigns I have, we literally just on our feet made it up with the client, listened to what they said. We even did it bilingual. We have like, I don't speak Spanish, but these pages are both English and Spanish. Because our team has that capability. So that's fun for me. Again, a lot of people get shy away from that. It's like a pain. I enjoy a challenge, and I love working with small business owners because I've been one myself for 32 years now, and I get it. But I also know how the big guys work. So I feel like I kind of bring that together to be able to help. And so, I have an amazing team. Everybody says that. My team is freaking amazing. They are I am so honored to work with them. They're all so high quality. Everybody cares about the client or they don't work for me. And so we have and everybody's good at different things. We have a lot of specialists, like a SEAL team, right? Everybody's got their They can play
Their
two
thing.
roles, but they got
Yeah,
one
yeah.
thing that they're really
Yeah,
good at. So anyway, I think that's a big part of it. It's not just about me.
Awesome. And so if people wanted to learn more, like, get on a call with you guys, figure out how you can help them scale on one of those paid channels, right? Whether it's Instagram or Facebook or like any other paid channels that are coming up, what's the best way for them to reach out to you guys?
Yeah, it's basically just go to socialmedianinjas.com and just use there's a book with me link on there to book a free consultation, or there's lots of other ways on the site too. You can say chat with me now or what have you. There's tons of options being marketers, but just book a free consult with me. Happy to sit down, totally free, do a little strategy session and see if there's a fit. And there's no obligation, and that's the way to get started. And I love to hear new stories about businesses and their challenges. So I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
Yeah, so if any of you are listening to the Prospecting Show here, I know we have a bunch of different people who come on the show and talk about their different services, from SEO to web dev to full stack marketing to paid ads to organic. What all the strategies are different. If you feel as though you resonate with the kind of work that Sean is doing with the Social Media Ninjas, definitely, we'll drop the link. You guys can check that out, socialmedianinjas.com. You can book a time to schedule. I know a lot of people come to us in the organic space, but we, like everyone knows, we don't do anything on the paid side. So like if you're looking for something that's paid strategy or just more comprehensive full stack strategy, or you're a bigger company and need more support, Sean would be the guy to go to for that. So again, check out socialmedianinjas.com. Sean Daly, thank you so much for coming on the Prospecting Show, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Connor.